A mafia boss who built an empire on blood and power married a virgin bride he believed was a manipulator, until the night he destroyed her with a single accusation. Now, pregnant and heartbroken, she's vanished into the shadows while he tears the world apart, searching for the only woman who ever loved the monster beneath the crown. Will redemption find him before it's too late? Or has he finally lost the one thing no amount of power can buy back? If you're ready to witness a love forged through betrayal, lies, and fire, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels across the world. Cold rain hammered the armored windows of the Moretti mansion like bullets trying to break through, and Damien Moretti stood in the hallway outside the bridal suite feeling something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Fear. Not the kind that comes from staring down the barrel of a gun or walking into enemy territory unarmed. This was different, quieter, more dangerous. The kind of fear that crawls under your skin and whispers that you're about to lose control of something you can't intimidate, bribe, or kill. He adjusted the cuffs of his black silk shirt for the third time, a nervous habit he'd thought he'd buried along with his father. The hallway smelled like expensive cologne and old wood, the kind of scent that screamed money and lineage and blood-soaked history. Portraits of dead Moretti men lined the walls, their painted eyes judging him from beyond the grave. Damien had taken over the family empire at 23 after his father was gunned down outside a Manhattan steakhouse. That was 12 years ago. 12 years of building the Moretti name into something so feared that politicians stammered when they said it and rival families crossed the street rather than risk eye contact. He'd survived 3 assassination attempts, dismantled 2 rival syndicates, and personally executed the man who tried to poison his youngest sister. He'd done things that would make most men vomit or pray or both. He'd built an empire on calculated violence and ice-cold intelligence, and now he was standing outside a bedroom door like a goddamn teenager. The wedding had been a spectacle. St. Patrick's Cathedral packed with crime families, politicians, dirty cops, and society vultures dressed in designer suits and fake smiles. The ceremony lasted 43 minutes. Damien knew because he'd counted every single one, feeling the weight of expectation crushing down on his shoulders. While the priest droned on about unity and commitment, Lily Harper had stood beside him in a white gown that probably cost more than her father's casino made in a year back when it was still making money. She'd looked small, fragile, terrified. Her hand had trembled when he slid the ring onto her finger, and she'd flinched when he lifted the veil for the obligatory kiss. He'd kept it brief, professional. A transaction sealed with oppressive lips that meant nothing. Except now, 3 hours later, standing outside the bridal suite, with champagne still buzzing in his veins and the sound of rain trying to drown the city, Damien realized the transaction wasn't quite finished. He pushed open the door. The suite was ridiculous. 15-foot ceilings, silk wallpaper, furniture that belonged in a museum, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. His mother had decorated it decades ago, back when she still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Back before his father's affairs and brutality had carved all the softness out of her face. Lily stood by the window with her back to him, still wearing the wedding gown. Moonlight cut through the rain and painted her in silver. She didn't turn around when he entered, didn't acknowledge him at all. Damien closed the door and locked it. The sound echoed. "You can drop the act now," he said, walking toward the bar cart and pouring himself 3 fingers of scotch. "The ceremony's over. The families are satisfied. You got what you came for." She turned slowly, and Damien saw her face clearly for the first time all night. No makeup left. She'd cried it all off. Her eyes were red and swollen, and there was a raw honesty in her expression that made something twist uncomfortably in his chest. "What I came for," she repeated softly. Her voice cracked on the last word. "Power. Protection. Access to the Moretti fortune." Damien drank the scotch in 2 swallows and poured another. "Your father's casino was drowning in debt to half the families in New York. The Russos wanted his head, the Costas wanted his business, and you," he gestured at her with the glass, "you found a way to turn his failure into your golden ticket." "That's what you think happened?" Lily's hands were shaking. She clasped them together like she was trying to hold herself intact. "I know what happened. Your father sold you to save his own ass, and you went along with it because living in a mansion beats living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens." "My father didn't sell me." Her voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath now. He begged me, on his knees, crying, telling me it was the only way to keep the Russos from killing him and my mother and burning down everything we had left. Damien laughed, but it came out harsh and ugly. So you're the martyr, the innocent sacrifice? I'm the daughter who didn't want to watch her parents die. Spare me the sob story. You knew exactly what you were doing when you agreed to this marriage. You saw an opportunity and you took it. That's fine. I respect the hustle. But don't stand there and pretend you're some kind of victim. Lily's face went white. For a second, Damien thought she might cry again, but instead she straightened her shoulders and met his eyes directly. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know your type. Beautiful girl, tragic circumstances, looking for a powerful man to rescue her. You probably practiced that wounded doe expression in the mirror. My father told me you were cruel, Lily said quietly. But I didn't think you'd be this cruel. Something about the way she said it, not angry, just sad and resigned, like she'd expected disappointment and gotten exactly what she'd braced for, made Damien's jaw tighten. He set down the glass and crossed the room until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough to smell her perfume underneath the rain, close enough to see the exhaustion carved into her face. Let's get something straight, he said. This marriage is a political arrangement, nothing more. You'll live here. You'll have access to money, security, everything the Moretti name provides. In exchange, you'll play your part in public. Smile for the cameras, attend the galas, convince the world this is real. And in private? In private, we stay out of each other's way. Lily studied his face for a long moment, and Damien had the uncomfortable sensation of being examined, dissected, seen in a way that made him want to look away first. You really believe I manipulated my way into this? She said finally. Yes. And nothing I say will change your mind. No. She nodded slowly, like she was accepting something heavy and inevitable. Then she reached up and started unbuttoning the back of her dress. Damien went very still. What are you doing? What you expect? Her fingers fumbled with the tiny buttons. Sealing the transaction. Isn't that what happens on wedding nights? Stop. Why? She finally got the top button undone and moved to the next. You think I'm here for money and power, right? So I might as well complete the bargain. I said stop. Damien caught her wrist. Her skin was cold. Lily looked up at him, and for the first time that night, Damien saw something raw and desperate in her expression. Something that looked almost like anger. You want to know the truth? Her voice was shaking again. I've never done this before. With anyone. Ever. I'm 24 years old and I've spent my entire life being told I'm too valuable to touch because my virginity might be useful someday. And now here I am, married to a man who hates me, about to give him the one thing I never wanted to give anyone this way. The words hit Damien like a physical blow. He dropped her wrist and stepped back. You're lying. Why would I lie about that? Tears were sliding down her cheeks now, but she didn't seem to notice. You already think the worst of me. What difference does it make? Damien's mind was racing, trying to reconcile the narrative he'd built, the manipulative seductress climbing her way into the Moretti empire, with the woman standing in front of him, crying and angry and somehow still dignified. You expect me to believe you agreed to marry a complete stranger and you're still a virgin? Yes. Lily wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing what was left of her mascara. I agreed because my father told me if I didn't, the Russos would kill my entire family. He didn't give me details. He didn't tell me who I'd be marrying until 3 days before the wedding. And when he told me it was you, he said, her voice broke. He said you were dangerous, but you kept your word. And that if I could survive this, I might actually be safe for the first time in my life. The rain was louder now, pounding against the windows like it was trying to break through and drown them both. Damien stared at Lily, really looked at her, and saw things he'd been too angry and suspicious to notice before. The exhaustion, the fear, the way she was holding herself together through sheer force of will, the way she was nothing like any of the women who'd ever tried to use him. Jesus Christ, he said quietly. Lily wrapped her arms around herself. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to like me, but I'm not your enemy, and I didn't manipulate my way into this. I'm just a woman who's trying to survive. Damien felt something shift inside his chest, something uncomfortable and unfamiliar that he immediately wanted to shove back down and bury. Compassion. He'd spent 15 years killing that instinct, treating it like a weakness that would get him destroyed. His father had beaten it into him. Trust no one, love nothing, control everything. Emotion was a blade your enemies would use to cut your throat. But looking at Lily now, exhausted and heartbroken and still trying to hold on to whatever dignity she had left, Damien felt the ice he'd built around himself start to crack. "Take off the dress," he said. Lily went pale. "What? Not like that. You look like you're about to collapse. Get out of the gown, take a shower, put on something comfortable. I'll sleep in one of the guest rooms tonight." "You don't have to sit—" "I'm not doing this for you," Damien interrupted. "I'm doing it because I'm not the kind of man who forces himself on a woman who clearly doesn't want to be touched, even if she's my wife." He walked toward the door, then stopped with his hand on the lock. "For what it's worth," he said without turning around, "I believe you. About your father, about the circumstances, about—" He trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. "About being a virgin?" Lily's voice was quiet. "Yeah, that." There was a long silence, broken only by the rain. "Thank you," Lily whispered. Damien unlocked the door and left before he could do something stupid like apologize or promise things he couldn't deliver. The hallway felt colder than before. He stood there for a moment, staring at the portraits of his ancestors and wondering what they would think of what he'd just done. Probably call him weak, soft, a disappointment to the Moretti legacy. But for the first time in his life, Damien didn't give a damn what dead men thought. He walked downstairs to his office, poured himself another drink, and tried to ignore the fact that everything he'd believed about his new wife had just been turned completely upside down. The next morning arrived gray and miserable, matching Damien's mood perfectly. He'd slept maybe 2 hours, spent most of the night reviewing financial reports and trying not to think about Lily crying in the bridal suite. By the time dawn broke, he'd consumed half a bottle of scotch and made exactly 0 progress on anything productive. Marco, his head of security and closest thing to a friend, found him at 6:30 in the morning, still sitting at his desk. "You look like shit, boss." "Good morning to you, too." Marco was 53, built like a concrete wall, and had been with the Moretti family since Damien's father was alive. He'd taken a bullet for Damien once and never let him forget it. He was also one of 3 people in the world Damien actually trusted. "Wedding night didn't go well?" Marco asked, dropping into a chair across from the desk. "We didn't sleep together." Marco's eyebrows went up. "That's not like you. She's not like the others." "How so?" Damien leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. "She's terrified, heartbroken, thrown into this situation against her will. And I spent the first hour of our marriage accusing her of being a manipulative gold digger." "Were you wrong?" "Completely." Marco let out a low whistle. "That's rare for you." "I know." "So what are you going to do about it?" Damien stared at the ceiling. "No idea." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the mansion wake up around them. Footsteps on marble floors, doors opening and closing, the quiet hum of a house full of people trying to stay invisible. "You could try being nice to her," Marco suggested. "I don't do nice." "Yeah, I've noticed. It's one of your more charming qualities." Damien shot him a look. "I'm not going to pretend this is a real marriage. It's a political arrangement. She knows that. I know that. Everyone knows that. Sure, but political arrangements work better when both parties aren't miserable. She'll adjust. Will she? Or will you just have another person in this house who's afraid of you?" That hit harder than Damien wanted to admit. He thought about the staff, the maids, the cooks, the drivers, the security team. They were efficient, professional, terrified. They did their jobs perfectly because the alternative was unemployment or worse. No one in this house loved him. They respected him, feared him, obeyed him. But loved him? No. And that had always been fine. Love was a liability in his world. Love got you killed. Love made you weak and stupid and vulnerable. Except now he was thinking about Lily standing in that bridal suite, crying and angry, and trying to explain that she wasn't his enemy. "I'll talk to her," Damien said finally. "Good. Because she's your wife now, and the families are watching. If this marriage falls apart, it makes you look weak. And weakness gets people killed in our world." "I'm aware." Marco stood up. Also, boss, try not to be a complete asshole when you talk to her. Just a suggestion. He left before Damien could respond. Gishawotek. Damien found Lily in the garden around noon. She was sitting on a stone bench near the fountain, wearing jeans and a simple white sweater, staring at the water like it held answers to questions she hadn't figured out how to ask yet. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and without the wedding makeup and expensive gown, she looked younger, more real. She didn't notice him approaching until he was a few feet away. When she looked up, there was a flash of something in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or resignation, before she smoothed her expression into careful neutrality. "I'm not bothering anyone," she said quickly. "I just needed some air." "You're allowed to be in the garden, Lily. This is your home now." She looked at him like she didn't believe that for a second. Damien shoved his hands in his pockets, feeling awkward in a way he hadn't felt since he was 16. "Can I sit?" "It's your bench?" "That's not what I asked." Lily hesitated, then nodded. Damien sat down, leaving a careful distance between them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The fountain kept running, filling the silence with white noise. "I owe you an apology," Damien said finally. "For last night, for the things I said. I was wrong." Lily turned to look at him, surprise flickering across her face. "You're apologizing?" "Don't get used to it. It's not something I do often." A ghost of a smile touched her lips, then disappeared. "Why now?" "Because you didn't deserve what I said to you, and because—" Damien stopped, trying to find words that didn't sound weak or stupid. "Because I spent my entire life being trained to assume the worst about everyone, to see manipulation and betrayal around every corner, and sometimes that means I see threats where there aren't any." "I'm not a threat to you," Lily said quietly. "I know. I'm starting to understand that." They sat in silence again. Damien watched a bird land on the edge of the fountain, dip its head in the water, then fly away. "Can I ask you something?" Lily's voice was hesitant. "Sure." "Do you want this marriage to work?" The question caught Damien off guard. He'd been expecting something easier, something he could deflect with a joke or a non-answer. "Define work," he said carefully. "I don't know. Not miserable? Not constantly fighting? Maybe even civil?" Damien thought about that. About what working meant in the context of an arranged marriage between two people who barely knew each other. About what his father would say if he were still alive. His father would tell him to keep Lily at arm's length, use her when necessary, discard her when convenient, never let emotion complicate business. But his father had also died alone, hated by everyone except the men who were paid to stand at his funeral. "I think civil is possible," Damien said finally. Lily nodded slowly. "Okay, civil. We can do civil." "There are going to be expectations," Damien continued. "Public appearances, charity events, family gatherings. You'll need to play the part of the devoted wife for the cameras." "I can do that." "And in private, we maintain separate lives. Separate bedrooms. You have your space, I have mine. No pressure. No obligations beyond what's necessary for appearances." Something flashed in Lily's eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or relief, but she nodded again. "That sounds fair." "Good." They fell back into silence. Damien found himself studying her profile, noticing details he'd missed before. The way she held tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers twisted together in her lap. The way she looked like she was constantly bracing for the next blow. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said quietly. Lily turned to face him, and her expression was complicated, sad and honest, and a little bit broken. "Everyone's afraid of you," she said. "Why would I be any different?" "Because you're my wife, not my enemy. In your world, can someone be both?" The question hit harder than it should have, because she was right. In Damien's world, trust was currency, and everyone was a potential threat until proven otherwise. But looking at Lily now, exhausted and fragile and trying so goddamn hard to hold herself together, Damien realized he didn't want her to be afraid of him. He wanted something else, something he couldn't quite name yet. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I need you to believe that." "Okay." "Do you believe it?" Lily was quiet for a long moment, studying his face like she was trying to read truth in the lines and scars. "I want to," she said finally. "I'm trying to." "That's good enough for now." They sat together in the garden until the sun started setting, not talking much, just existing in the same space without hostility or suspicion. And when Damien finally stood to go back inside, he realized something had shifted between them. Not love, not even trust yet, but maybe the smallest, most fragile possibility of both. 3 weeks passed. Damien kept his promise. Separate bedrooms, separate lives, civil conversations over breakfast when their schedules aligned, otherwise ships passing in the marble hallways of the mansion. But something was changing, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Lily didn't hide in her room anymore. She started exploring the house, asking the staff questions, learning names and stories. She brought fresh flowers into the dining room. She opened windows that had been closed for years. She laughed at something one of the younger maids said, and the sound echoed through halls that had been silent for too long. The staff stopped being afraid of her, started smiling when she entered rooms, started asking if she needed anything before she could ask them. Damien noticed, and he noticed himself noticing, which was even stranger. He'd catch glimpses of her through doorways, reading in the library, practicing piano in the music room, talking to the gardener about roses, and every time he'd feel something twist in his chest. Marco noticed too. "You're staring again, boss." They were standing in Damien's office, reviewing security reports for an upcoming meeting with the Italians, and Damien had been looking out the window at Lily walking through the garden. "I'm not staring, I'm observing." "Right, observing. Is that what we're calling it now?" Damien turned away from the window. "She's adapting. That's good. It makes the arrangement more sustainable." "The arrangement?" Marco repeated, smirking. "Sure. What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, boss. Absolutely nothing." Damien was about to respond when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and felt his jaw tighten. Cassandra Blake. He ignored the call. "Who was that?" Marco asked. "No one important." But that was a lie, and they both knew it. Cassandra had been Damien's lover for 3 years. Not a girlfriend. He didn't do relationships, but a consistent presence in his life. Beautiful, ambitious, calculating. She'd understood the rules. No strings, no expectations, no emotions beyond what happened in bed. Then Damien had gotten engaged, and Cassandra had taken it about as well as expected. She'd shown up at the mansion the day after the engagement was announced, drunk and furious, accusing him of betrayal. Damien had sent her away and blocked her number. Apparently she'd gotten a new phone. The problem was Cassandra knew things. About his business, about his operations, about weaknesses in the Moretti Empire that could be exploited if she got angry enough. That made her dangerous. "You need to deal with her," Marco said, reading his expression, "before she becomes a problem." "I know. Want me to handle it?" Damien thought about that. Thought about Marco showing up at Cassandra's penthouse apartment with a warning or a threat, or worse. Thought about how that would play out if word got back to the other families. "No, I'll take care of it myself." "When?" "Soon." But soon turned into 2 more ignored calls and a text message that said simply, "We need to talk." Damien deleted it. The annual Moretti Charity Gala was held on the first Saturday in October, exactly 1 month after the wedding. It wasn't really about charity, it was about power. A showcase for New York's criminal elite to gather in one place, make deals, show off their wealth, and remind everyone who was still standing after another year of violence and betrayal. Damien hated these events. Too many smiles that didn't reach eyes. Too many knives hidden under tuxedos. Too many people pretending they weren't all criminals playing dress-up. But attendance wasn't optional, and this year, he'd be bringing Lily. "You'll need a gown," he told her 3 days before the event. They were having coffee in the breakfast room, one of their rare morning interactions. Something expensive, something that makes a statement. Lily looked up from her book. "What kind of statement?" "That you belong here. That you're untouchable. That anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me." "That's a lot of pressure for a dress." "Welcome to my world." She studied him for a moment, then closed the book. "Are you worried about something specific?" Damien considered how much to tell her. About Cassandra. About the families who'd been making noise about the Harper debt. About the fact that arranged marriages were seen as weakness by some of the younger, more aggressive bosses who thought old traditions were for old men. "There will be people at this gala who don't like me," he said finally, "and by extension, don't like you. I need you to be strong, confident. Show them you're a Moretti now, not just the Harper girl who got lucky." Lily's expression hardened slightly. "I can handle that." "Good. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why do you care what they think? You're the most powerful man in New York. Why does it matter if some of them don't like you?" Damien smiled, but it was sharp and humorless. "Because power isn't about fear alone, it's about respect. And respect requires maintaining appearances. The moment you show weakness, you're dead. Maybe not immediately, maybe not even soon, but eventually someone will see the opening and take their shot." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." Lily looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. "Does it ever get easier?" "No, you just get better at pretending it does." Besh. The night of the gala arrived with cold wind and clear skies. Damien stood in his bedroom, adjusting his bow tie in the mirror and trying to ignore the knot of tension in his stomach. He'd been to 100 of these events, faced down more dangerous men than would be in that ballroom tonight. But this was the first time he'd be bringing a wife, the first time he'd be publicly claiming someone as his, and that made him vulnerable in ways he'd spent his entire adult life avoiding. There was a knock on his door. "Come in." Marco stepped inside, already in his tuxedo, looking uncomfortable in formal wear. "Car's ready. Security sweep is complete. No threats detected." "Good. You nervous, boss?" "No." "You're adjusting that tie for the third time." Damien dropped his hands and turned away from the mirror. "Let's get this over with." They walked downstairs together. The mansion was unusually quiet, most of the staff given the night off since the family would be gone until late. Damien reached the foyer and stopped. Lily was standing at the bottom of the staircase, and for a second he forgot how to breathe. The gown was midnight blue, almost black, with a neckline that was elegant without being revealing. Her hair was styled in loose waves, and she wore minimal jewelry, just diamond earrings and the wedding ring. She looked like she belonged in this world, like she'd been born to stand in mansions and stare down criminals and steal hearts without even trying. "Is it okay?" Lily asked, suddenly self-conscious. The stylist said, "You look perfect," Damien interrupted. Lily blinked, clearly surprised by the compliment. A faint blush crept across her cheeks. "Thank you." Marco cleared his throat. "Shall we?" The drive to the venue took 40 minutes, the three of them silent in the back of the armored SUV while the city lights blurred past outside. Damien found himself glancing at Lily every few minutes, noticing small things. The way she kept fidgeting with her ring, the way she took slow, deliberate breaths like she was trying to calm herself down. "You're going to be fine," he said quietly. Lily turned to look at him. "How do you know?" "Because you survived marrying me." "This is nothing compared to that." She laughed, and the sound eased something in Damien's chest. When they arrived at the Plaza Hotel, photographers were already swarming the entrance. Flashes exploded as Damien stepped out of the car and extended his hand to Lily. She took it, her fingers cold in his, and together they walked through the gauntlet of cameras and shouted questions. Inside the ballroom was exactly what Damien expected. Crystal chandeliers, gold everywhere. Tables covered in silk. Men in tuxedos and women in gowns that cost more than most people made in a year. And beneath the surface, enough violence and treachery to burn the city down twice over. Damien kept Lily close as they moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from people who probably wanted him dead, shaking hands with men who'd tried to undermine him, smiling at women who'd spread rumors about his family. Lily played her part perfectly. Gracious. Charming. The perfect mafia wife. They were halfway through their second round of the ballroom when Damien heard a voice behind him that made his blood run cold. "Well, well, if it isn't the happy couple." He turned slowly. Cassandra Blake stood there in a red gown that left almost nothing to the imagination, holding a champagne glass and wearing a smile that was pure venom. And beside her, looking far too pleased with himself, stood Victor Langston, the man whose empire Damien had nearly destroyed 3 years ago, the man who had every reason in the world to want revenge. "Cassandra," Damien said carefully. "Victor, this is unexpected." "Is it?" Cassandra's eyes flicked to Lily, then back to Damien. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. After all, it's not every day you get to witness the great Damien Moretti playing house." Lily tensed beside him, but she didn't respond. Victor smiled. We haven't been properly introduced. Victor Langston. And you must be the famous Lily Harper, or should I say, Lily Moretti. A pleasure, Lily said, her voice steady despite the tension radiating through her body. The pleasure is all mine, I assure you. Victor's smile widened. Tell me, how are you adjusting to married life? Must be quite a change from your father's casino. Damien felt his jaw tighten. Careful, Victor. Oh, I'm always careful. You know that better than anyone. Victor turned his attention back to Lily. Did Damien tell you how we know each other? It's quite a story. Some other time, Damien interrupted. He placed his hand on the small of Lily's back, intending to steer her away from this conversation before it got worse. But Cassandra wasn't finished. Before you run off, she said sweetly, I just wanted to say congratulations on your marriage. Though I have to admit, I'm curious. How does it feel to be the replacement? Lily went very still. Excuse me? Oh, didn't you know? Damien and I were together for 3 years, right up until his family forced him to marry you for political gain. I wonder if he's told you how many nights we spent together in that big mansion you're living in now. The words hung in the air like poison. Damien felt rage building in his chest, cold and sharp. That's enough. Is it? Cassandra took a step closer to Lily, her smile never wavering. Or is it just getting started? Because I know things about your husband, sweetheart. Dark things, violent things. And if you think this marriage is going to protect you, you're even more naive than I thought. Something inside Damien snapped. He'd spent his entire life controlling his emotions, channeling anger into strategy, turning rage into calculated violence that served a purpose. But hearing Cassandra threaten Lily, hearing the mockery and venom in her voice, pushed him past calculation into something primal. Listen very carefully, he said, his voice dropping to a register that made everyone within earshot go quiet. You're going to walk away from my wife right now. You're going to leave this gala, and you're going to forget you ever knew me. Because if you ever speak to her again, if you ever come near her again, if you even think about her again, I will destroy you so completely that no one will remember you ever existed. The ballroom had gone silent. Every eye was on them now. Cassandra's face went pale, but Victor just laughed. Strong words, Moretti. But we both know you're not going to do anything. Not here, not in front of all these witnesses, not when it would make you look unstable. Try me, Damien said quietly. Victor's smile faltered slightly. Then Damien turned to the crowd that had gathered, projecting his voice so everyone could hear. Since we're all here, he said, let me make something very clear. Lily Moretti is my wife, and anyone who disrespects her, threatens her, or makes her uncomfortable answers directly to me. No warnings, no second chances. That's not a threat. That's a promise. He turned back to Cassandra, his expression cold. And as for you, he continued, I want everyone here to know exactly what kind of person you are. 3 years ago, you tried to steal information about my operations to sell to the feds. When that didn't work, you attempted to seduce my business partners to gain leverage. And when I ended our arrangement last month, you threatened to leak confidential details about my family to the press. Cassandra's face went from pale to red. That's not I have recordings, Damien interrupted. Phone calls, text messages, emails, all documenting your attempts at blackmail and betrayal. Would you like me to play them for everyone here? The silence was absolute now. Cassandra looked around the ballroom, seeing nothing but cold judgment and dawning realization. Her reputation, carefully cultivated over years, was crumbling in real time. Victor had stopped smiling. Get out, Damien said quietly. Both of you, before I change my mind about keeping this civil. For a moment, no one moved. Then Cassandra turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Victor followed, shooting Damien a look that promised this wasn't over. But Damien didn't care about threats. He cared about the fact that Lily was still standing beside him, trembling slightly, her hand clutched in his. The crowd began to disperse, conversations resuming in hushed tones. A few people approached to offer their support or congratulations or whatever empty words people used in moments like this. Damien ignored them all. Are you okay? He asked Lily quietly. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. But your reputation, my reputation can handle it. The question is, Are you okay? Lily took a shaky breath, then nodded. I think so. Come on, let's get out of here. They left the ballroom together, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed them. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp, cutting through the emotional haze. Marco was waiting by the car, looking amused. That was quite a show, boss. Just get us home. The drive back to the mansion was silent. Damien kept Lily's hand in his, her fingers gradually warming against his palm. When they arrived, he walked her to her room. Thank you, Lily said at her door, for what you did in there, for defending me. You're my wife. I'm not going to let people treat you like that. Even though this is just an arrangement? Damien looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, and realized he was tired of lying. To her, to himself. Maybe it's more than that, he said quietly. Lily went very still. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not sure anymore. What this is. What we are. Damien. He leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't planned. Wasn't calculated. It was pure instinct and emotion and the culmination of a month of tension and confusion and watching her transform his cold mansion into something that almost felt like a home. Lily made a soft sound of surprise, then kissed him back. And for the first time in years, Damien felt something crack open inside his chest, something warm and terrifying and impossible to control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lily stared at him with wide eyes. What was that? She whispered. I don't know, Damien admitted, but I think we're going to need to figure it out. He left her standing there, went to his own room, and tried to process what the hell had just happened. He'd spent his entire life building walls, protecting himself, keeping everyone at a carefully calculated distance. But Lily was getting through, past the walls, past the defenses, into places he'd thought were sealed off forever. And the truly terrifying part? He was starting to let her. 2 days later, Marco knocked on Damien's office door with news. We've got a problem. Damien looked up from the financial reports he'd been reviewing. What kind of problem? The kind involving Cassandra Blake and Victor Langston meeting at a restaurant in Midtown. Damien's blood went cold. Are you sure? Our guy got photos. They were there for 3 hours. Very cozy. Shit. Marco dropped the photos on the desk. Sure enough, there was Cassandra and Victor, heads close together, clearly deep in conversation. What do you think they're planning? Marco asked. Damien studied the images, his mind racing through possibilities. Victor had resources, connections, and a deep burning need for revenge after what Damien had done to his empire. Cassandra had inside knowledge, details about Moretti operations, weaknesses she'd learned during their relationship. Together, they were dangerous. I don't know, Damien said finally, but we need to find out, fast. Want me to put surveillance on both of them? Yes, and increase security around the mansion, especially around Lily. Marco nodded. You think they'll go after her? Damien looked at the photos again, at the calculating expressions on both their faces, and felt dread settle in his stomach. I think they'll go after whatever hurts me most. And right now, that was Lily. He just hadn't admitted it out loud yet. The surveillance photos sat on Damien's desk like evidence of a crime that hadn't happened yet. He'd been staring at them for 20 minutes, watching Cassandra's face blur into Victor's across the glossy surface, trying to read intent in pixels and shadows. Marco stood by the window, arms crossed, radiating the kind of patient tension that came from 20 years of waiting for violence to arrive. We could grab them both, Marco said. Tonight. Make this problem disappear before it becomes a problem. Damien rubbed his eyes. 3 hours of sleep in 2 days was catching up with him. No, that's what they want. Give them an excuse to paint me as unstable, dangerous, a threat to the other families. You are dangerous. But I'm not unstable. There's a difference. Victor doesn't care about the difference. He wants revenge. And Cassandra wants to hurt you for humiliating her at the gala. Damien knew Marco was right. Knew that every hour he waited gave them more time to build whatever plan they were constructing. But moving too fast, too obviously, would make him look paranoid, weak. And weakness was blood in the water. Double the security detail on Lily, Damien said. Make sure she's never alone outside the estate. And I want eyes on Victor and Cassandra 24/7. Phone taps if we can get them. I want to know what they're planning before they know we know. Marco nodded. You're going to tell her? Tell her what? That she's in danger. That your ex-lover and a rival boss are plotting something. Damien thought about Lily. About the way she'd looked at him after he'd kissed her. Equal parts confused and hopeful and terrified. About how she was just starting to relax in the mansion, just beginning to believe she might actually be safe here. Not yet, he said. No reason to scare her if we don't have concrete details. Boss, I said not yet. Marco stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. You're getting attached. I'm being careful. No. Careful would be locking her in a panic room until this blows over. You're trying to protect her from being scared. That's attachment. Get out. Just saying. Marco left and Damien was alone with the photographs and his thoughts. The problem was, Marco was right. Damien was getting attached, and attachment was exactly what Victor and Cassandra would exploit if they were smart, which they were. He swept the photos into a drawer and locked it. Then he poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon, even though it was barely noon, and tried to figure out how to keep Lily safe without admitting how much keeping her safe was starting to matter. Lily was in the library when Damien found her that afternoon, curled up in one of the oversized leather chairs with a book and a cup of tea that had probably gone cold an hour ago. Sunlight slanted through the tall windows, turning her hair into spun gold. She looked peaceful, content. Damien almost turned around and left without disturbing her, but she glanced up before he could retreat, and her face transformed when she saw him. Not quite a smile, but something warmer than the careful neutrality she'd worn for the first month of their marriage. Hey, she said. Hey. Damien walked into the library and dropped into the chair across from hers. They'd been dancing around each other for 2 days now, ever since the kiss. Not avoiding, exactly, but not seeking out either. Both of them trying to figure out what the hell had changed between them. What are you reading? Damien asked. Lily held up the book. Pride and Prejudice. I know, it's not exactly groundbreaking literature, but you don't have to justify your reading choices to me. I know. Old habit. My father used to criticize everything I read, said novels were a waste of time when I should be learning practical skills. Practical skills like what? How to smile at men I hated. How to pretend to be interested in conversations that made me want to scream. How to be valuable. The bitterness in her voice caught Damien off guard. That sounds exhausting, he said. It was. But that's what daughters are for, right? Strategic assets in business negotiations. Damien thought about his own sisters, about how his father had tried to arrange marriages for them too, trading them like poker chips to shore up alliances. About how he'd put a stop to it after taking over the family, deciding that some traditions needed to die. For what it's worth, he said, I don't see you as an asset. Lily looked at him, surprise flickering across her face. What do you see me as? The question hung between them, loaded and dangerous. Damien thought about lying, giving her some smooth answer that maintained distance and control. But he was tired, and the bourbon he'd had earlier was making him honest in ways he usually wasn't. I'm not sure yet, he admitted, but it's not what I thought a month ago. Lily set down her book. Because I told you I was a virgin? Because you proved me wrong. About everything. About who you were, why you were here, what you wanted. I spent 15 years learning to read people, and you made me realize I don't know shit. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's supposed to be the truth. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of comfortable quiet that Damien wasn't used to. Usually silence made him tense, alert, waiting for the attack he knew was coming. But with Lily, silence felt different, safer. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. What happened between you and Cassandra? Damien's jaw tightened automatically. He should have known this was coming. Should have prepared an answer that was honest enough to satisfy without revealing too much. We had an arrangement, he said carefully. Physical. No emotions, no expectations beyond that. It lasted 3 years. Did you love her? No. Did she love you? Damien thought about Cassandra, about the way she'd looked at him sometimes, like she was trying to crack a code she couldn't quite break, about the increasing demand she'd made toward the end, wanting more time, more access, more of him than he was willing to give. I think she loved what I represented, he said. power, money, access to a world most people never see. But me? No. She didn't know me well enough to love me. Does anyone know you well enough? The question hit harder than it should have. Damien thought about Marco, who'd been his closest friend for years but still maintained a professional distance. About his sisters, who called on holidays and avoided asking about his work. About the parade of people who orbited his life without ever really touching it. No, he said quietly. I don't let them. Lily studied him with those eyes that saw too much. Why not? Because knowing me is dangerous, for them and for me. That sounds lonely. It's safe. Are you sure those are different things? Damien didn't have an answer for that. Lily picked up her tea, realized it was cold, and set it back down with a soft laugh. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Me, trained to be valuable instead of loved. You, trained to be safe instead of known. Is that what we are? A pair? She met his eyes. I don't know. Are we? Damien stood up, crossing to where she sat, and extended his hand. Come with me. Lily looked at his hand, then at his face, searching for something. Then she took it and let him pull her to her feet. He led her through the mansion, up 2 flights of stairs to the east wing, where he kept his private quarters. Past the bedroom where he slept, past the office where he worked, to a door at the very end of the hallway that was always locked. He pulled out a key and opened it. Inside was a room Lily had never seen before. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, a piano in one corner, bookshelves lining the walls filled with novels and poetry and philosophy texts, a comfortable couch, original artwork that actually meant something instead of just being expensive. This is where I go, Damien said, when I want to remember who I was before I became what everyone needed me to be. Lily walked into the room slowly, taking it all in. She stopped in front of the piano, running her fingers over the keys without pressing down. You play? She asked. Used to, before my father decided music was for women and weak men. That's horrible. That was my father. Lily sat down on the piano bench and played a few notes. Nothing structured, just testing the sound. Why are you showing me this? Damien leaned against the doorframe. Because you asked if anyone knows me, and I'm trying to figure out if maybe I want you to. The confession hung in the air between them. Lily's hands stilled on the keys. When she looked up at him, there were tears in her eyes. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? This. Whatever this is. I don't know the rules. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know how to be married to someone I'm starting to... She stopped, shaking her head. Starting to what? Care about, she finished quietly. I'm starting to care about you. And that terrifies me. Because I don't know if you're showing me this room because you feel the same way, or because you're trying to manipulate me into feeling something that isn't real. The words hit Damien like a punch to the gut. You think I'm manipulating you? I think you're trained to get what you want from people. And I think I'm exactly the kind of naive, desperate woman who would fall for it. Damien crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of the piano bench so they were eye level. Listen to me, he said. I don't know what the hell I'm doing either. I don't have rules for this. I don't have a playbook. But I'm not manipulating you. I'm showing you this room because you're the first person in 15 years I've wanted to show it to. Because when I'm around you, I remember what it feels like to want something besides control and survival. And that scares the shit out of me, but I'm doing it anyway. Lily's tears spilled over. Why? Because I think you might be worth the risk. She kissed him, not hesitant like before, not careful. This was raw and desperate and real, and Damien kissed her back with everything he'd been holding in for weeks. They ended up on the couch, tangled together, kissing like drowning people finding air. Damien's hands were in her hair, on her face, tracing the curve of her jaw while she gripped his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. This changes things, he said. I know. I don't know how to be in a real relationship. I'll probably fuck it up. I've never been in any relationship. I'll definitely fuck it up. Despite everything, Damien laughed. We're a disaster. Completely. You still want to try? Lily pulled back enough to look him in the eyes. Yes, do you? Damien thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea, about how attachment made you vulnerable, about how love was a weapon your enemies could use against you, about his father's voice in his head screaming that emotion was weakness. Then he thought about Lily, about how she'd brought light into his cold mansion, about how she made him want to be someone better than the monster he'd become. "Yes," he said, "I want to try." They stayed in that room until the sun set, talking and kissing and slowly, carefully, beginning to build something real between them. And for a few hours, Damien let himself believe they might actually make it work. 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful navigation. They kept up appearances during the day. Separate bedrooms. Professional distance in front of the staff. The arranged marriage facade intact for anyone watching. But at night, Damien would slip into Lily's room and they'd talk for hours. About his childhood and her father. About the violence he'd witnessed and the loneliness she'd endured. About dreams they'd both given up on and fears they'd never spoken out loud. They didn't sleep together, not yet. Lily had made it clear she needed time, and Damien was determined to give her whatever she needed, even when every kiss made him want to push for more. "Thank you," she'd whispered one night, curled against his chest while rain hammered the windows. "For being patient." "I'm not patient. I'm terrified of screwing this up." She'd laughed and kissed his jaw. "That's the same thing." The staff noticed the change. Damien caught the younger maids whispering and smiling when Lily passed. Marco made increasingly sarcastic comments about the happy couple. Even the cook started making Lily's favorite meals without being asked. The mansion felt different, warmer, like it was waking up from a long, cold sleep. But underneath the warmth, danger was building. Victor and Cassandra had gone quiet. Too quiet. Damien's surveillance team reported they'd stopped meeting publicly, stopped using their regular phones, stopped being visible at all, which meant they'd figured out they were being watched, which meant whatever they were planning had moved underground. "I don't like this," Marco said one morning, reviewing the latest reports in Damien's office. "They're professionals. They know we're tracking them, so they're communicating some other way." Encrypted phones? Probably. Or in-person meetings at locations they sweep for surveillance first. Damien stared at the wall, his mind racing through possibilities. What resources does Victor still have, after we destroyed his empire? Money, offshore accounts we couldn't touch, connections in Europe and South America, and enough rage to fuel a small war. And Cassandra? Information. About your operations, your routines, your security protocols, things she learned during your relationship. Things she could use to plan an attack. Marco nodded grimly. "Yeah." "Target? You, your businesses, or..." Marco hesitated. "Or what? Or Lily, if they want to hurt you psychologically instead of physically." Damien's blood went cold. "Increase her security detail, full protection, 24/7. I want armed guards visible and hidden. I want the mansion locked down tighter than a federal prison." "That's going to scare her." "I don't care. Keep her safe." Marco studied him for a long moment. "You're in love with her." "I'm protecting my wife." "That's not what I said." Damien turned to face him. "Don't." "Don't what? Point out that you're compromised? That you're making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy?" "I'm making decisions based on keeping my family safe." "She's not..." Marco stopped, seeing something in Damien's expression. "Jesus, you really do love her." Damien didn't answer, couldn't answer, because saying it out loud would make it real, and making it real would make it a vulnerability he couldn't afford. "Just do what I asked," he said quietly. "Please." Marco left without another word. Damien sat alone in his office, staring at the reports and photographs and trying to ignore the sick feeling building in his stomach. He'd broken his own rules, let emotion cloud judgment, allowed himself to care about someone in a world where caring got people killed, and now Lily was a target because of it. The increased security was impossible to miss. Lily noticed it the next day when she tried to go for a walk in the garden and found 4 guards following at a discreet distance. When she went into the city to meet a friend from college, 2 armored SUVs escorted her and Marco himself stood outside the restaurant. She confronted Damien that night in his private room, anger flushing her cheeks. What the hell is going on? Damien looked up from the book he'd been pretending to read. What do you mean? Don't play stupid. The guards, the surveillance, the fact that I can't leave this house without a military escort. What aren't you telling me? He closed the book and set it aside. It's just a precaution. A precaution against what? General threats. I have enemies, Lily. That's not news. This is different. This is new. Something happened, and you're not telling me what. Damien looked at her, seeing the fear beneath the anger, and felt guilt twist in his chest. Cassandra and Victor have been meeting, he said carefully. Planning something. We don't know what yet, but given their history with me, it's safer to assume the worst. Lily's face went pale. You think they're going to come after me? I think they're going to try to hurt me, and you're the easiest way to do that. She sat down heavily on the couch. Because we're married. Because you matter to me. The confession hung between them. Lily looked up, her eyes searching his face. How much? What? How much do I matter to you? Enough that you'd tell me the truth instead of protecting me from it? Or just enough that you'd lock me in a cage and call it safety? Damien flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? You're making decisions about my life without including me. You're treating me like I'm something fragile that needs to be protected, instead of a person who deserves to know what's happening. I'm trying to keep you safe by lying to me. I'm not lying. I'm just omitting, controlling information, deciding what I can handle. Lily stood up, her hands shaking. I've had enough of that in my life, Damien. My father did it for years, made choices for me, kept me in the dark, told me it was for my own good. I won't accept it from you too. This is different. How? Because I actually give a damn whether you live or die. The words came out louder than he'd intended, echoing off the walls. Lily stared at him. Say that again? What? What you just said. Say it again. Damien's heart was pounding. I care whether you live or die. I care whether you're scared or hurt or in danger. I care about you, Lily, more than I've cared about anyone in 15 years. And that terrifies me because caring about people in my world gets them killed. Tears were sliding down her face now. So what are you saying? That we should stop this before it gets worse? No. I'm saying I don't know how to do this. How to love someone and keep them safe at the same time. How to let you in without putting a target on your back. How to be honest without scaring you away. You just said you love me. Damien realized what he'd admitted. Yeah, I guess I did. Do you mean it? He crossed to where she stood and took her face in his hands, wiping away tears with his thumbs. Yes, I mean it. I love you, and I'm sorry for trying to protect you by hiding things. You're right. You deserve to know the truth, even when the truth is ugly. Lily closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I love you too, and I'm terrified. Not of Cassandra or Victor or whatever they're planning. I'm terrified of losing this. Of losing you. You're not going to lose me. You don't know that. I do, because I've survived a lot worse than a bitter ex-lover and a washed-up rival boss. And now I have something worth surviving for. She kissed him then, deep and desperate, and Damien kissed her back like he could somehow transfer safety through touch alone. When they broke apart, Lily's eyes were still wet but determined. Tell me everything, she said, about Cassandra and Victor, about what you think they're planning, about the risks, all of it. No more protection through ignorance. So Damien told her about the surveillance photos and the encrypted communications, about Victor's resources and Cassandra's inside knowledge, about Marco's concerns and his own fears, about how attack might not come as violence but as something more insidious, character assassination, fabricated evidence, psychological warfare designed to destroy from the inside out. Lily listened to all of it, her face growing paler but her expression never wavering. What do we do? She asked when he finished. We wait. We watch. We're careful. And we don't give them any ammunition to use against us. What kind of ammunition? Anything that could be twisted, photographed out of context, recorded and manipulated. We assume everything we do in public is being watched and documented. That sounds exhausting. Welcome to my world. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she looked up at him with something fierce in her eyes. If they come after us, we fight back. Together. No more you protecting me while I stay in the dark. We're partners now. Equals. Equals? I may not know how to run a criminal empire, but I know how to survive. I've been doing it my whole life. So if we're going to face this threat, we face it as a team. Damien felt something shift in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or recognition. Seeing the steel beneath Lily's soft exterior and realizing she was stronger than he'd given her credit for. Partners, he agreed. They sealed it with a kiss that turned into more. For the first time, Lily didn't pull away when Damien's hands roamed lower. Didn't stop him when he started unbuttoning her shirt. Are you sure? He whispered against her mouth. Yes, I'm sure. I love you. And I want this. I want you. They made love that night in Damien's private room, surrounded by books and moonlight, and the truth they'd finally shared with each other. And afterward, lying tangled together while Lily slept against his chest, Damien allowed himself to believe they might actually survive what was coming. But the next 6 weeks were the best of Damien's life. He and Lily stopped pretending, stopped maintaining separate bedrooms and professional distance. The staff figured it out immediately and responded with genuine happiness instead of the dutiful smiles they usually wore. Lily transformed the mansion completely. Fresh flowers in every room, windows thrown open to let in light, laughter echoing through hallways that had been silent for too long. She befriended the younger staff members, learning their names and stories. She reorganized the library. She convinced Damien to host a small dinner party for his sisters, who showed up suspicious and left charmed. I like her, his youngest sister Angela told him privately. She's good for you. You smile now. I didn't think you remembered how. Damien did smile now. Woke up smiling. Came home from brutal business meetings and found Lily reading in the library and felt tension melt away. Made love to her at night and felt something close to peace. For 6 weeks, he was almost happy. And then Lily missed her period. She told him over breakfast on a Tuesday morning, her hands shaking as she set down her coffee cup. I'm late, she said quietly. 2 weeks late. I'm never late. Damien's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. You think you're pregnant? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. We haven't exactly been careful. His mind was racing. Pregnant. A child. His child. The Moretti heir everyone would expect and scrutinize and judge. A target. Hey, Lily said, reaching across the table to take his hand. Talk to me. What are you thinking? Damien looked at her, at the fear and hope warring in her expression, and felt something fierce and protective surge through him. I'm thinking, he said slowly, that if you're pregnant, then we're having a baby. Our baby. And he or she is going to be the most loved, most protected child in New York. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. You're happy? Terrified. But yes, happy. She laughed through her tears. Me too. They went to a private doctor that afternoon. One of the few medical professionals Damien trusted completely. The man did an exam, drew blood, and confirmed what they both already knew. Lily was pregnant. 6 weeks. Damien held her hand while the doctor explained prenatal care and warning signs and all the medical details that suddenly felt overwhelmingly important. When they got back to the mansion, Lily disappeared to take a nap while Damien went to his office and tried to process what had just happened. A child. His child. Growing inside the woman he loved. It should have felt like a miracle, should have felt like joy. But all Damien could think about was Victor and Cassandra. About the threat that had never materialized but hadn't disappeared either. About how a pregnant wife was an even bigger target than just a wife. About how he'd just given his enemies the perfect weapon to destroy him. Marco found him an hour later staring at nothing. Boss, you okay? Lily's pregnant. Marco's eyebrows shot up. Congratulations? Thanks. You don't sound happy. I'm terrified. Of being a father? Of losing them, both of them, because I couldn't keep them safe. Marco sat down heavily. Shit. Yeah. They sat in silence for a moment. You need to tell her, Marco said finally. Tell her what? That you're afraid, that you don't know how to do this, that you're human. I can't do that. Why not? Because she needs me to be strong, to know what I'm doing, to protect her. She needs you to be honest, There's a difference. Damien thought about that, about the conversation they'd had weeks ago, about truth versus protection, about how Lily had demanded partnership instead of ignorance. "You're right," he said quietly. "Say that again. I want to record it for posterity." Despite everything, Damien smiled. "Get out of my office." Marco left, and Damien sat alone with his fear and his joy and his overwhelming sense that everything was about to change. He was right, but not in the way he expected. The attack came 2 weeks later, and it wasn't physical. It started with a phone call from one of Damien's business partners, a carefully worded question concerning financial transactions and potential audit issues. Then another call from a different partner, asking similar questions. By the end of the day, 5 separate associates had contacted him with variations of the same concern: large sums of money moving out of Moretti accounts into offshore holdings, transfers that looked like embezzlement or money laundering or both. Damien pulled the records himself, traced every transaction, and found nothing. No suspicious transfers, no missing money. His accounts were exactly as they should be, which meant someone had fabricated evidence and distributed it to his partners. "It's them," Marco said, reviewing the fake documents that evening. "Has to be. Victor and Cassandra. They've been quiet for 2 months, building this." The documents were good, professional, complete with forged signatures and manipulated bank statements. If Damien hadn't known they were fake, he might have believed them himself. "What else?" Damien asked. Because there was always something else. Marco pulled out his phone and showed him a video. It was surveillance footage, grainy, date-stamped, showing Lily meeting a man at a coffee shop in Midtown, talking, laughing, the man passing her an envelope. "When was this?" Damien demanded. 3 weeks ago. But it's fake. The timestamp is wrong, the lighting doesn't match the weather that day, and if you look close, the envelope appears out of nowhere. It's been digitally inserted. But it looks real. To anyone not examining it forensically? Yeah, it looks real. Damien stared at the screen, at his wife's face smiling at a stranger, and felt ice forming in his chest. "What's the narrative?" he asked quietly. "That Lily's been working with someone to steal from you, that the marriage was a setup from the beginning, that she's not who she says she is." And people are believing this? Some, the ones who were already skeptical about your arranged marriage, the ones who thought you went soft by choosing love over pure strategy. Damien's hands were shaking. "Show me the rest." There was more, so much more. Forged emails between Lily and unknown contacts, discussing the plan and keeping him blind. Manipulated phone records showing calls to numbers associated with rival families. Bank statements in her name showing deposits of huge sums. Money supposedly stolen from Moretti accounts. All of it fake. All of it believable. "They're trying to turn you against her," Marco said. "Make you doubt. Make you angry. Make you destroy your own marriage from the inside." Damien knew it was manipulation. Knew every piece of evidence had been fabricated specifically to exploit his fears and past trauma. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things. Because despite everything, despite loving Lily and trusting her, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered, "What if it's true? What if she'd played him from the beginning? What if her innocence and vulnerability had been an act? What if everything they'd built together was a lie designed to destroy him?" "Boss?" Marco's voice cut through the spiral. "You know this is bullshit, right? You know Lily wouldn't do this?" "Of course I know that." "Then why do you look like you're considering it?" "I'm not." "You are. I can see it on your face. Don't let them win. Don't let Victor and Cassandra make you destroy the one good thing in your life." Damien closed his eyes. "I need to talk to Lily." "Bad idea. Not while you're like this. Wait until morning. Review the evidence again with fresh eyes. Remember who she actually is instead of who they're trying to make you think she is." I said, "I need to talk to her." Marco stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "Don't do this, boss. Please. You'll regret it." But Damien was already walking toward the door. He found Lily in their bedroom, his bedroom now, which had become theirs over the past 2 months, sitting on the bed with her hands resting on her still flat stomach. She looked up when he entered, and her smile died when she saw his expression. What's wrong? Damien closed the door and leaned against it. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Lily stood up slowly. You're scaring me. Have you been in contact with anyone about me? About my business? About the family? What? No. Why would you? Have you met with anyone secretly? Taken money from anyone? Made any deals I don't know about? Her face went white. Damien, what's happening? He pulled out his phone and showed her the surveillance footage, watched her face as she watched herself meeting a stranger at a coffee shop. That's not, she started, then stopped. Okay, yes, I met someone that day, but it wasn't, who was it? My old roommate from college. She needed help with, what did she give you in that envelope? Photos, old pictures of us together. She was cleaning out her apartment and thought I'd want them. You're sure that's all it was? Lily stared at him, hurt bleeding into her expression. You don't believe me. I'm trying to, but there's more. Financial records, emails, phone calls, all showing a pattern of what? Me stealing from you? Me betraying you? Her voice was rising. After everything we've been through, after everything we've shared, you actually believe I would do that? I don't know what to believe. The words came out harsher than he'd intended. Lily flinched like he'd struck her. Show me the evidence. Damien hesitated, then pulled up the forged documents on his phone, handed it to her, watched her face as she scrolled through fabricated emails and manipulated bank statements. This is fake, she said quietly. All of it. You know that, right? I know it could be fake, but I also know how good people are at lying, at manipulating, at making you believe in something that doesn't exist. People like me? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Lily handed back the phone, her hands trembling. Let me guess. Cassandra and Victor? This is their move? Probably. And you're falling for it. I'm being careful. No. You're being paranoid. There's a difference. Tears were streaming down her face now. I've given you everything, Damien. My trust, my body, my heart. I'm carrying your child inside me right now. And you're standing here accusing me of betrayal based on forged documents created by people who want to destroy us. I'm not accusing you. I'm asking questions. Questions that assume I'm guilty. Questions that treat our entire relationship like it might be a con. Can you blame me? Look at this evidence. If you saw this about someone else, wouldn't you have doubts? If it was someone I loved, someone I trusted, someone I'd built a life with? Lily shook her head. No, I wouldn't. Because love means believing in someone even when the evidence says you shouldn't. That's naive. No, that's what it means to actually love someone instead of just saying the words. The accusation hit Damien like a physical blow. I do love you, he said. Do you? Or do you love the idea of me? The version of me that fits your narrative? Because the second something challenges that narrative, you're ready to believe the worst. That's not fair, isn't it? You spent your whole life learning to trust no one, to see manipulation everywhere, to assume everyone has an angle. And now you're looking at me, your wife, the mother of your child, the same way you'd look at a business rival. I'm trying to protect us. By destroying us from the inside? By doing exactly what they want you to do? Damien opened his mouth to respond, but Lily cut him off. I need you to leave, she said quietly. What? Get out. I can't. Her voice broke. I can't look at you right now. Not when you're looking at me like I'm the enemy. Lily. I said get out. The scream echoed off the walls. Damien stared at her, at the tears and pain and betrayal in her face, and felt something crack inside him. But instead of staying, instead of fighting, instead of choosing trust over suspicion, he left, walked out of the bedroom and down the hall and back to his office, where he poured himself bourbon and tried to convince himself he'd done the right thing, asked the right questions, protected himself, stayed smart in a world where being soft got you killed. But all he could see was Lily's face. All he could hear was her voice breaking on the word leave. All he could feel was the certainty that he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. And in the morning, when he finally gathered the courage to go back to their room and apologize and beg her to forgive him, Lily was gone. The closet was half empty. Her suitcases were missing. And on the bed was her wedding ring, No note, no explanation, no forwarding address. Just the ring that symbolized a marriage he'd destroyed with his own hands. Marco found him standing in the empty room 20 minutes later. "She left," Damien said. His voice sounded hollow, even to himself. "I know. I saw the surveillance footage. She took a car service to the train station around 4 in the morning. You knew and you didn't stop her." "You think I could have? After what you did?" Damien sank onto the bed, still staring at the ring. "I fucked up." "Yeah, you did. She's pregnant, Marco. She's pregnant, and I let her leave." "Not let. Drove." "You drove her away." "I need to find her." "And say what? That you're sorry for accusing her of betrayal? That you're sorry for choosing paranoia over trust? That you're sorry for proving every fear she had about you was justified?" Every word was a knife, but Damien deserved every cut. "I need to fix this," he said desperately. "You can't fix this, not right now, not while she's this hurt." Marco sat down beside him. "Give her time. Let her breathe. Let her figure out whether forgiving you is even possible. What if she doesn't come back? Then you live with the consequences of your choices, like the rest of us." Damien picked up the wedding ring. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried the weight of everything he'd destroyed. "I love her," he whispered. "I know." "Then why did I—" "Because you're a coward," Marco said bluntly. "When it came down to choosing between trusting love or trusting fear, you chose fear, and now you get to live with that." He left Damien sitting alone in the empty room, holding a wedding ring that belonged to a woman who might never come back. And for the first time in 15 years, Damien Moretti, the most feared crime boss in New York, put his head in his hands and wept. Damien spent the first 3 days drinking. Not the controlled, measured drinking of a man who used alcohol as punctuation between thoughts. This was drowning. Obliteration. The kind of drinking that turned hours into fog and made the bedroom spin when he tried to stand. Marco took the bourbon away on day 4. "Enough," he said, his voice flat and final. "You want to destroy yourself? Do it after we find her." Damien was sitting on the floor of the bedroom that still smelled like Lily's perfume, his shirt wrinkled and stained, 3 days of stubble darkening his jaw. He looked up at Marco with eyes that had forgotten how to focus properly. "I can't find her. I've tried. She's gone." "You haven't tried. You've been sitting here feeling sorry for yourself while your pregnant wife is out there alone, scared, and probably convinced you never loved her at all." The words cut through the alcoholic haze. Damien pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly. "You're right. I know I'm right. Now shower, shave, and get your shit together. We have work to do." 20 minutes later, Damien stood in his office, clean but hollow, staring at maps and data that might as well have been written in a language he'd forgotten how to read. "She withdrew $5,000 from an ATM in Newark," Marco said, pointing to a red mark on the map. "Then nothing. No credit cards, no phone activity, no digital footprint. She's smart. She knows how to disappear. Or someone's helping her disappear." Damien's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe she didn't just run. Maybe someone convinced her to run. Someone who wanted her isolated, alone, vulnerable." The implication hung in the air like smoke. "Cassandra and Victor," Damien said slowly. "They'd want her gone, out of the picture. Make it easier to finish whatever they're planning." Well, so the question is, did they just create the circumstances for her to leave, or did they actively help her disappear? Damien's mind was starting to work again, cutting through the guilt and grief to find the cold calculation underneath. If they helped her, they'd want to know where she is, keep tabs, make sure she stays hidden until they're ready for the next move. Which means we need to find their surveillance. Or their leak inside our organization. Marco's expression darkened. "You think we have a mole? How else did they get so much inside information? About my routines, Lily's schedule, our security protocols? Someone's been feeding them intelligence." "Shit." "Yeah." They spent the next hour reviewing personnel files, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. Who had gambling debts? Who had sick family members that needed expensive medical care? Who had secrets that could be leveraged? The list was longer than Damien wanted to admit. "We need to narrow it down," Marco said. "Focus on people with access to both financial data and personal security details." They narrowed it to 4 names, all longtime employees, all trusted, all potentially compromised. I'll handle the interrogations personally, Damien said. Quietly, one at a time. We don't want to spook them into running before we get answers. And while you're doing that, you keep looking for Lily. Check shelters, cheap hotels, anywhere she might hide if she's trying to stay invisible. And check hospitals. Hospitals? She's pregnant and alone. If something goes wrong, she'll need medical care. And she'll use a fake name, but her records will still be there. Marco nodded slowly. Smart. Just find her, Marco. Please. Before something happens that we can't fix. The interrogation started that night. Damien had the first suspect brought to a warehouse on the waterfront, the kind of place that had seen enough violence that one more conversation wouldn't register as unusual. The man's name was Tony Bellini, 43, head of digital security for the Moretti organization for 6 years. He sat in a metal chair under a single overhead light, trying to look calm but sweating through his shirt. Damien stood in the shadows, watching. You know why you're here, Tony? No, Mr. Moretti, I swear. Whatever you think I did, someone's been feeding information to Victor Langston and Cassandra Blake. Financial data, security protocols, personal details about my wife, and that information could only come from someone inside my organization. Tony's face went white. It wasn't me. I swear on my mother's grave, it wasn't me. Then you won't mind if we check your bank accounts, your phone records, your computer. Check whatever you want. You won't find anything. And they didn't. Tony was clean. Terrified, but clean. The second suspect was a finance manager named Denise Caruso. 51, divorced, 2 kids in college. She cried through the entire interview and offered up her entire life for inspection without hesitation. Also clean. The third suspect tried to run when Marco came to collect him. That told Damien everything he needed to know before the interrogation even started. His name was Paul Vega. 36, worked in operational logistics. Had been with the family for 8 years. Damien had trusted him with shipment schedules, route planning, facility access codes. He'd trusted wrong. Paul sat in the same warehouse, in the same chair, with the kind of fear in his eyes that came from knowing exactly how bad this was going to get. How much did they pay you? Damien asked quietly. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me. We found the deposits. $50,000 over the past 3 months. Wired from a shell company in the Caymans. That's Victor's signature move. So I'll ask again, how much did they pay you? Paul's resistance crumbled like wet paper. 100,000 total, 50 up front, 50 when the job was done. What job? Providing information, schedules, security details, financial records? About my wife? Paul hesitated, then nodded miserably. Damien felt rage building in his chest, cold and precise. What did you tell them about Lily? Her routines, where she went, who she talked to. They wanted to know everything. Did you help create the forged evidence? The fake bank statements and emails? No, I just provided the framework. The details they needed to make it look real. They did the actual fabrication. And the surveillance footage? The video of her at the coffee shop? That was real footage, from our own security cameras. They just edited it to remove context and make it look suspicious. Every word was another nail in Paul's coffin, and he knew it. Why? Damien asked. Why betray me? I needed the money. My daughter has leukemia. The treatments aren't covered by insurance, and I was drowning in debt. Victor found out, approached me, offered a way out. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. Sorry doesn't bring my wife back. I know, but I can help you find her. Damien went very still. What did you say? I can help. I know their plan. I know what they're doing next. Start talking. Paul took a shaky breath. The goal was never to kill you. It was to break you, make you destroy your own happiness. Victor wanted you to suffer the way you made him suffer when you dismantled his empire. So they built this whole psychological operation. Fabricate evidence, plant seeds of doubt, watch you tear your marriage apart yourself. And it worked, Damien said bitterly. Yeah, but that was just phase 1. Phase 2 starts now. Which is what? They're going to approach Lily. Offer her protection, support, safety. Tell her they know the truth about the forged evidence. Position themselves as allies who can help her escape you permanently. Damien's blood went cold. Where is she?
I don't know. They didn't tell me that part. But I know how they're planning to make contact. There's a woman named Sarah Chen, social worker. She volunteers at women's shelters throughout New Jersey and Pennsylvania. She's going to look for Lily, gain her trust, then introduce her to someone who claims they can help. Someone working for Victor and Cassandra. Exactly. And then what? What's the end game?
Paul looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I don't know all the details, but I heard Victor say something about final proof, making absolutely sure you could never get her back. What kind of proof? I don't know. I swear. Damien stared at him for a long moment, weighing truth against self-preservation, trying to see past the fear to whatever was underneath. Marco, he said quietly. Marco stepped out of the shadows. Take him to a secure location. Keep him alive and comfortable. He cooperates fully. He gets to live. He holds anything back, anything at all, and he disappears. Understood? Marco nodded. Understood. Wait, Paul said desperately. What about my daughter? Her treatments? I'll pay for them, Damien interrupted. All of them. Every cent. But you're going to help me find my wife and expose Cassandra and Victor. And if you betray me again, your daughter will grow up thinking her father abandoned her because I'll make you vanish so completely, they'll never find a body. Paul's face crumpled with relief and terror in equal measure. Thank you. I'll help. I'll tell you everything I know. Good. Start with Sarah Chen. Where does she work? How do they contact her? And how do I find her before she finds Lily? Sarah Chen was easier to locate than expected. She worked at 3 different women's shelters in northern New Jersey, volunteered at a crisis hotline on weekends, and posted regularly about her work on social media with enough identifying details that tracking her movements was almost embarrassingly simple. She's either incredibly naive or she wants to be found, Marco said, studying the surveillance photos they'd gathered in 48 hours. Or she doesn't know she's part of something bigger. Victor and Cassandra probably approached her with a sob story, told her there's a pregnant woman fleeing an abusive husband who needs help but is too scared to ask for it directly, using her genuine desire to help as cover for their operation. Exactly. They were sitting in Damien's office at 2 a.m, surrounded by coffee cups and maps, and the kind of exhaustion that came from running on adrenaline and desperation. So what's the play? Marco asked. We follow her. 24/7 surveillance. The moment she makes contact with anyone suspicious, we move. And if she leads us to Lily? Damien was quiet for a moment. Then I get one chance to convince my wife that I'm not the monster she thinks I am. What if she doesn't believe you? Then I've lost her. Permanently. Marco studied him carefully. You've changed in the past few weeks. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Human. Vulnerable. Willing to admit you're wrong. Lily did that. She made me remember what it felt like to be something other than afraid. And now? Now I'm more afraid than I've ever been, because I found something worth protecting and I'm the one who destroyed it. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the mansion settle around them. The house felt empty without Lily. Cold, like all the life she'd brought into it had left with her. We'll find her, Marco said finally, and you'll fix this. You're Damien fucking Moretti. You've survived worse. Have I? Well, no, but you're overdue for a win. Despite everything, Damien almost smiled. Sarah Chen made contact 3 days later. Marco's surveillance team picked it up immediately. Sarah entering a small motel on the outskirts of Morristown at 11 a.m, staying inside room 237 for 40 minutes, then leaving with a woman wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap. The woman was pregnant, young, moving like she was trying to be invisible. It was Lily. Damien saw the photographs and felt his heart stop. She looked exhausted. Thinner than she'd been 3 weeks ago. Her face was drawn and pale, and even through the grainy surveillance image, he could see the defeat in her posture. Where are they going? He demanded. Following them now. Looks like they're heading north, maybe toward Patterson. Damien was already moving toward the door. I'm going. Bad idea, boss. You show up, Lily runs. Let me handle this. I'm not sending someone else to do this. She's my wife, my responsibility. And that's exactly why you're the worst person to approach her right now. She's terrified of you, hurt by you. You show up, all she'll see is the man who accused her of betrayal and drove her away. Every word was true, and Damien hated it. So what do you suggest? Let me make contact. Alone. Unthreatening. I tell her the truth about the forged evidence. Show her proof that it was all fabricated. Give her the choice to come back or not. And if she chooses not, then at least she'll know you didn't betray her, that you were manipulated the same way she was. Damien wanted to argue, wanted to get in a car and drive until he found her and explain everything himself. But Marco was right. Lily wouldn't listen to him. Not yet. Not when the wounds were still raw. Fine. You go. But I want real-time updates. And if she's in danger, if anything feels wrong, you pull her out immediately. Deal. Marco left within the hour, taking 2 men for backup and a file folder full of evidence that proved the documents were fake. Damien stayed at the mansion, pacing and drinking coffee and trying not to imagine everything that could go wrong. 4 hours later, his phone rang. "We have a problem," Marco said without preamble. "What kind of problem?" "Sarah Chen delivered Lily to a house in Patterson, but it's not a shelter or a safe house. It's a private residence, and guess whose name is on the property deed?" Damien's blood went cold. "Victor's." "Bingo. They've got her, boss. This was the plan all along. Make her run, make her vulnerable, then offer rescue that's actually a trap." "Is she in immediate danger?" "Hard to say. The house has security, but nothing military grade. Looks like they're keeping her comfortable for now." "For now?" "I don't know what the end game is, but having her in their physical custody can't be good." Damien was already grabbing his keys. "Send me the address. I'm coming." "Damien, wait. We need a plan. You can't just send me the fucking address, Marco." There was a pause. Then Marco rattled off a street and number in Patterson. Damien was out the door before Marco could finish warning him not to do anything stupid. Max. The house was nondescript. 2 stories, modest yard, the kind of place that blended into suburban New Jersey without attracting attention. There was a car in the driveway, lights on inside, and somewhere in there was Lily. Damien parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, staying in shadows, every instinct honed from 15 years of violence screaming at him to be careful. But careful wasn't going to get him inside. He walked straight to the front door and knocked. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then footsteps. The sound of a deadbolt sliding back. The door opened. Cassandra stood there in jeans and a silk blouse, her hair pulled back, looking almost domestic. When she saw Damien, her expression shifted from surprise to something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Well," she said, "this is unexpected. Where's my wife?" "Your wife? Is that what you're calling her now? I thought she was just an arranged marriage, a political convenience. Cassandra, where is she?" "Safe, comfortable, away from you, which is exactly where she wants to be." "Let me see her." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'm walking through you and finding her myself." Cassandra smiled, and it was sharp as broken glass. "You could try, but Victor's upstairs with her right now, having a very interesting conversation about her options, about how she can start a new life, raise her baby in peace, never have to see you again." Damien felt rage building, red and hot. "You're lying." "Am I? Why don't you come inside and find out?" She stepped back, opening the door wider. Every instinct told Damien this was a trap, that walking through that door meant walking into something he couldn't control. But Lily was inside. He stepped across the threshold. The house was quiet, furnished simply. Nothing that suggested violence or imprisonment. Just a normal suburban home that happened to be hiding his pregnant wife. "Upstairs," Cassandra said, gesturing to the staircase. "Second door on the right. But Damien, you should prepare yourself. She's not the woman you remember." "What did you do to her?" "Nothing. We just told her the truth about who you really are, what you're capable of, the things you've done." "I've never lied about what I am." "No. But you let her believe you'd changed, that love could redeem you, that you were capable of being something other than a monster." Cassandra's smile widened. And now she knows the truth, that monsters don't change. They just find new prey. Damien pushed past her and took the stairs 2 at a time. The second door on the right was ajar. He could hear voices inside, Victor's low rumble and Lily's softer responses. He pushed the door open. Lily was sitting on a bed.
her hands folded over her stomach, looking pale and fragile and defeated. Victor sat in a chair by the window, looking relaxed and in control. When Lily saw Damien, her face went blank. Not angry, not scared, just empty. "Hello, Damien," Victor said pleasantly. "We were just talking about you." Damien ignored him, focusing entirely on Lily. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" She didn't answer. "Lily, please, talk to me." "Why?" Her voice was hollow. "So you can accuse me of more things I didn't do? So you can question whether the baby is even yours?" The words hit like physical blows. "I was wrong," Damien said desperately, "about everything. The evidence was fake, forged by Cassandra and Victor to make me doubt you, to make me push you away. I should have trusted you. I should have believed you. I'm sorry." "You're sorry," Lily repeated flatly. "That fixes everything."
No, it doesn't. I know it doesn't. But I'm telling you the truth. They manipulated both of us, made us destroy each other. Victor laughed. "Oh, this is beautiful. The great Damien Moretti reduced to begging." "Shut up," Damien snapped. "Or what? You'll kill me? In front of your pregnant wife? Prove all her worst fears about you?" Damien forced himself to stay calm, to ignore Victor and focus on Lily.
"Come home," he said quietly. "Please, let me prove to you that I'm telling the truth. Let me show you the evidence. Let me fix what I broke." Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because even if the evidence was fake, your reaction was real. The way you looked at me, the things you said, the fact that you believed I could betray you so easily, that was all real. I was scared. I was manipulated. I made a mistake. No. You showed me who you really are underneath all the promises and romance. You're exactly what my father warned me about, a man who destroys everything he touches. Lily, I want you to leave. I'm not leaving without you. Then I'll have Victor throw you out." Victor stood up slowly, pulling a gun from his waistband. "You heard the lady. Time to go, Moretti." Damien stared at the weapon, calculating odds. He could probably get to Victor before he pulled the trigger. Could probably disarm him, maybe even kill him. But Lily would see all of it, would watch him commit violence in front of her, would have every fear about him confirmed. "Don't," Lily whispered. She was looking at Damien with something that might have been pleading. "Please, just go." I can't leave you here with them." "She's not a prisoner," Victor said. "She's our guest, free to come and go as she pleases. She's choosing to be here, choosing us over you." "Is that true?" Damien asked Lily. She looked away. "Yes." The single word destroyed him. "If you leave now," Cassandra said from the doorway behind him, "we'll make sure she's taken care of. The baby too. Medical care, financial support, everything she needs. But you have to walk away, forever." Damien looked at Lily one more time, memorizing every detail of her face. The way her hair fell over her shoulders, the curve of her jaw, the stomach that held his child. "I love you," he said, "and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you, whether you're there to see it or not." He turned and walked out of the room, down the stairs, out the front door. Made it to his car before the grief hit him like a collapsing building. He sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, and tried to breathe through the pain of losing the only thing that had ever mattered more than survival. His phone rang. Marco. "Boss, what happened?" "She chose them. She chose to stay." "Shit." "Yeah." "What now?" Damien stared at the house, at the lit windows that held his wife and his unborn child, and his entire destroyed future. "Now I figure out what they're really planning. Because this isn't about Lily choosing Victor and Cassandra. This is about something else. Something bigger." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." He started the car and drove away, leaving behind the woman he loved and the life they'd almost built together. But as he drove, his mind was already working, analyzing, planning, because something about the whole situation felt wrong. The setup was too perfect, Victor too smug, Cassandra too satisfied. They'd won, gotten exactly what they wanted. So why did it feel like they were still playing? "I'll check it." The answer came 2 days later, delivered to Damien's office in a plain manila envelope. Inside were photographs.
High resolution, time-stamped, showing Lily and Victor in that house in Patterson, sitting close together, his hand on her shoulder, her smiling up at him. And underneath the photographs, a single typed note. She was never yours. She was ours from the beginning. The marriage, the pregnancy, all of it. A 3-year plan to destroy you from the inside out. You didn't just lose, Moretti. You never had a chance. Damien stared at the words, his mind refusing to process them. It wasn't possible. Lily couldn't have been working with them from the start. He'd seen her fear, her innocence, her genuine love. You couldn't fake that. Not for months. Unless you were a better actor than he'd given anyone credit for. Unless the greatest con wasn't the forged evidence. It was Lily herself. No, he didn't believe it, couldn't believe it. But as he looked at the photographs again, at the way Lily was smiling at Victor, at the ease in her posture, doubt began to creep in like poison. What if he'd been wrong about everything? What if the only thing he'd ever been right about was his original suspicion, that Lily Harper had seduced her way into the Moretti Empire to destroy it? His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Hello, Damien. Lily's voice. Soft, sad, familiar. Lily? I'm sorry for all of it, for lying to you, for making you believe I loved you, for letting you think the baby was yours. Damien's world tilted sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying Victor's right. This was always the plan. My father's debt was real, but the arranged marriage was my idea. I approached your family, convinced them I was perfect for you. Innocent, vulnerable, exactly what you needed. And you fell for it, all of it. You're lying. They're making you say this. Am I? Or are you just realizing that maybe you were right all along? That maybe trust is for fools and love is a weapon? Lily, if they're threatening you, if they're forcing you to, Goodbye, Damien. Thank you for the months of luxury and the successful pregnancy. Victor will make a much better father than you ever could have. The line went dead. Damien sat in his office, surrounded by photographs and lies, and felt the last piece of himself that believed in redemption shatter into dust. Marco found him an hour later, still sitting in the dark. Boss? It was all fake, from the beginning. She was working with them, playing me. You don't know that. She called, confessed, everything was a setup. Or that's what they want you to believe. Don't fall for it, Damien. Don't let them win. But Damien was already gone. Already retreating into the cold, controlled place where emotion didn't exist and survival was the only thing that mattered. Double our security. Fortify all operations. I want everyone associated with Victor and Cassandra dead or destroyed by the end of the month. Boss, I said, do it. Marco stared at him, seeing the transformation happening in real time. Watching the man Lily had helped him become disappear back into the monster. What about Lily? Lily who? Damien's voice was ice. I don't know anyone by that name. He turned back to his computer, already planning revenge, already calculating the most efficient way to destroy everyone who'd touched his life. And if somewhere deep inside, beneath all the rage and betrayal and grief, a small voice whispered that maybe he was making another mistake. Maybe Lily needed saving instead of abandoning. Damien silenced it. Because monsters didn't save people. They destroyed them. And he was done pretending to be anything else. Marco watched Damien transform over the next 72 hours from a man struggling with grief into something colder, sharper, infinitely more dangerous. The drinking stopped. The hesitation disappeared. Every movement became precise, calculated, stripped of everything human except the brutal efficiency that had built the Moretti Empire in the first place. You're making a mistake, Marco said on the third day, watching Damien review attack plans like he was planning a hostile business takeover instead of preparing to destroy human beings. I don't make mistakes. I make decisions and live with the consequences. You're not thinking straight. You're hurt and angry, and I'm thinking perfectly straight for the first time in months. Damien looked up from the documents, and his eyes were empty. I let emotion compromise my judgment. Let a woman I barely knew infiltrate my life and my organization. That ends now. What if she's telling the truth? What if the phone call was coerced? What if Victor and Cassandra are manipulating you again? Then they've won. Either way, the result is the same. Lily made her choice. She chose them. Whether it was always the plan or a decision made under duress
doesn't change the fact that she's not coming back. Marco wanted to argue but couldn't find the words, because Damien was right about one thing. Whether Lily was victim or architect, she was gone, and dwelling on which version of the truth to believe wouldn't bring her back. "So what's the play?" Marco asked finally.
Damien slid a folder across the desk. "We dismantle Victor's remaining operations. Cut off his money, his connections, his protection. Force him into a corner where he has to come at me directly instead of hiding behind psychological games. And Cassandra? Her reputation is already destroyed. Now we destroy everything else, her assets, her connections, her future. Make her radioactive to anyone who might consider protecting her. That's scorched earth. That's survival. They wanted war. They're getting war." Marco opened the folder and scanned the details. It was comprehensive, brutal, the kind of strategy that would leave bodies and wreckage across 3 states. "This will cost us," he said quietly. "Alliances, goodwill, the reputation you've built as someone rational instead of vengeful." "I don't care." "You should, because once you start this, there's no walking it back. You'll be the monster everyone always suspected you were." Damien smiled, and it was the coldest thing Marco had ever seen. "Good. Monsters are what people understand. Love made me weak. Fear will make me strong again. The first strike came 48 hours later. Victor owned a shipping company in Newark that served as a front for moving illegal goods through the port. Damien didn't just shut it down. He burned it to the ground at 3 in the morning, making sure every camera in a 5-block radius captured the flames. The message was clear. Subtle was over. The second strike hit Cassandra's art gallery in Chelsea. Damien bought the building out from under her, had her evicted, and bulldozed the structure within a week. Her entire collection, her reputation, her carefully cultivated identity as a patron of culture, gone. By the end of the first week, Victor and Cassandra knew Damien was coming for them. By the end of the second week, they were scrambling to protect what was left. And through it all, Damien felt nothing. No satisfaction. No rage, just the cold mechanical process of destroying obstacles. He was in his office reviewing the 3rd phase of attacks when his phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. "Hello?" "Damien." Lily's voice, but different this time. Shaking, desperate. "Please, you have to stop." "Why?" "Having second thoughts about your partnership with Victor?" "There is no partnership. There never was. They forced me to make that call. They said if I didn't, they'd kill you. They had a gun to my head while I said those things." Damien's grip tightened on the phone. "Prove it." "How? How can I prove something when you've already decided I'm guilty?" "Tell me something only you would know, something we shared that they couldn't fabricate or torture out of you." There was silence on the line. Then Lily's voice, barely a whisper. "The night in your private room, when you showed me the piano and the books. You told me about your father teaching you that music was weakness, and I asked if you still remembered how to play. You said you remembered, but you were afraid that if you tried, the only thing that would come out was grief." Damien's breath caught. No one knew about that conversation. Not Marco, not anyone. Just him and Lily in that room, trading vulnerabilities like currency. "That doesn't prove anything," he said, but his voice was shaking now. "You could have guessed, or they could have bugged the room." "I'm 8 weeks pregnant, Damien. I did the ultrasound 2 days ago. The baby has a heartbeat. I heard it. And all I could think about was how much I wanted you there. How much I wanted to share that moment with you instead of being trapped in this house with people who want to use our child as leverage." "Where are you?" "I don't know. They moved me after you came to the Patterson house. Somewhere in the mountains. Pennsylvania, maybe. There are trees everywhere and no neighbors close enough to hear me scream." "Are they hurting you?" "Not physically. But Victor keeps talking about the plan, about how once the baby is born, they'll have everything they need to destroy you completely. He's going to claim the child is his, say that I came to him pregnant and begging for help escaping your abuse. He's going to use DNA evidence somehow. I don't know how, but he has people who can fake it. And then he'll take you to court, destroy your reputation, take everything you've built." Damien's mind was racing. "How did you get access to a phone?" "One of the guards. He felt bad for me. Left his phone in the bathroom for 5 minutes. I don't have much time before—" The line went dead. Damien immediately called back. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. He tried again,
Same result. Shit! Marco appeared in the doorway like he'd been summoned. What happened?
Lily called. She says it was all coerced, that Victor and Cassandra are holding her, planning to use the baby to destroy me legally instead of physically. Do you believe her? Damien thought about the conversation, about the detail only Lily could have known, about the desperation in her voice that sounded nothing like the cold confession from a week ago. Yes, I believe her. Then we need to find her, fast. I don't know where she is. Mountains, Pennsylvania, that's all I have. Marco pulled out his phone, already typing. I'll pull property records, see what Victor owns in that region, cross-reference with anything remote enough to keep someone hidden. Do it fast. If they know she called me, they'll move her again. Or worse. Damien didn't want to think about worse. Couldn't afford to think about worse. Because worse meant Lily getting hurt, or the baby. And if that happened, there wouldn't be enough of Victor and Cassandra left to identify. His phone buzzed, text message from the unknown number. They know. They're coming. I love you. I'm sorry. L. Then nothing. Damien tried calling back. The number was disconnected. Marco. I'm on it. Already pulling. Wait. Marco's face went pale as he stared at his screen. Boss, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Victor just liquidated everything, every account, every asset, every holding. He's converting to cash and cryptocurrency. Looks like he's preparing to run, or preparing for something big. Yeah, that's what worries me. Damien's phone rang again. This time, it was a number he recognized. One of his contacts inside the FBI. Moretti. Mr. Moretti, this is Agent Chen. You need to know that your name came up in a federal investigation this morning. Something about kidnapping, false imprisonment, and domestic violence. A woman claiming you're holding her against her will, threatening her, and she's in fear for her life and the life of her unborn child. Damien's blood went cold. That's not true. I'm not holding anyone. I know. That's why I'm calling. The complaint was filed by Victor Langston on behalf of someone named Lily Harper Moretti. He claims she escaped your custody and came to him for help. He has evidence. Photos, recordings, witness statements. It's all fabricated, but it's good. Good enough that there's a warrant being issued for your arrest right now. When? You have maybe an hour before it goes wide. Maybe less. Thank you. Damien hung up and looked at Marco. They're framing me. Federal kidnapping charges. Victor's positioning himself as Lily's savior while making me look like an abusive husband. Jesus, that's their endgame. Not just destroying your reputation in the criminal world, destroying you legally, putting you in federal prison where they can't touch you directly, but where you're vulnerable to anyone Victor pays to finish the job. And they have Lily as the star witness. Probably already coached her, threatened her, broken her down enough that she'll say whatever they want when the agents show up. So what do we do? Damien thought fast. Every instinct told him to run, disappear into the network of safe houses and false identities he'd built over 15 years. But running meant abandoning Lily, meant letting Victor and Cassandra win completely. We find her first, he said, before the FBI gets involved, before Victor can use her testimony against me. That's insane. We have maybe an hour before, then we better work fast. Marco stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. You're going to get us both killed. Probably. Worth it? Damien thought about Lily, about their child growing inside her, about the life they'd almost built together before fear and manipulation had torn it apart. Yeah, it's worth it. They found the property in 43 minutes, a cabin in the Poconos registered to a shell company that traced back through 3 layers of paperwork to Victor Langston. Remote, isolated, exactly the kind of place where you could keep someone hidden. I'm going, Damien said, already grabbing keys. Not alone, you're not. You walk into a trap without backup, you're dead. Fine, you and 3 men armed, but we go quiet. No shooting unless absolutely necessary. Lily's in there. I won't risk her getting caught in crossfire. They took 2 vehicles, drove fast and hard through Manhattan, across the bridge, into Jersey, and then Pennsylvania. The roads got narrower, darker, twisting through forest that looked black and impenetrable. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by trees, one light visible in an upstairs window. Damien killed the headlights a quarter-mile out and approached on foot. Marco and the others fanned out, covering exits and watching for security. There were 2 guards outside. Young, armed, definitely not FBI. Damien circled around back, moving through underbrush like he'd been trained to do decades ago, before he'd become a boss and started delegating violence. He reached the back door, tested the lock, found it open. Too easy. He stepped inside anyway.
The interior was dark, quiet. Smelled like old wood and something chemical that made Damien's skin crawl. He moved through the kitchen into a hallway, following the light upstairs. The floorboards creaked under his weight. Damien froze, waiting for shouts or gunfire. Nothing. He continued up. At the top of the stairs was a door with light leaking underneath. Damien could hear voices inside. 1 male, 1 female. Victor and Lily. He pressed his ear to the door. "I need you to understand this isn't personal," Victor was saying. "It's business. Damien destroyed my empire, took everything I built. This is just balance." "By using me?" Lily's voice was tired, defeated. "By using an innocent baby?"
The baby isn't innocent. It's leverage. The most valuable kind. And once you testify that Damien held you prisoner, abused you, threatened you, the federal case will destroy him completely. He'll spend the rest of his life in a cell while I rebuild everything he took from me. And what happens to me? To the baby? You'll be taken care of. Comfortable life. Financial security? All you have to do is say what I tell you to say when the agents arrive. When are they coming? Any minute now. I made sure the timeline was tight. Damien won't have time to find you before federal custody takes over. And once you're in their protection, he'll never get near you again. Damien had heard enough. He kicked the door open. Victor spun, reaching for a gun on the table beside him, but Damien was faster. He crossed the room in 3 strides and slammed Victor against the wall, one hand around his throat. "Where's Cassandra?" Victor smiled through the choking, his face turning red. "You're too late. She's already at the FBI office, filing her own testimony, corroborating everything. You're finished, Moretti." Damien squeezed harder. "I asked you a question." "Damien, stop!" Lily's voice cut through the rage. "Please, don't kill him. Not in front of me." He looked at her for the first time. She was sitting on a bed, hands folded over her stomach, eyes red from crying. She looked fragile, broken, but alive.
"Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine. They didn't hurt me. But you need to leave. Now. The FBI is coming, and if they find you here, I'm not leaving without you. You have to. This is a trap. The whole thing is a trap. Victor wants you here when the agents arrive, so it looks like you came to threaten me into silence." Damien looked at Victor, who was smiling even while being strangled.
"She's right," Victor gasped. "This was always the plan. Get you emotionally compromised, make you chase her, catch you in the act of breaking into the place where she's supposedly being held for her protection. The agents will be here in minutes, and when they see you assaulting me, threatening her, it'll confirm every allegation we've made. Then I'll just kill you before they arrive. Do it. Make it easy for them. Murder on top of kidnapping and domestic violence. They'll never let you see daylight again." Damien's hand tightened. It would be so easy. 1 squeeze, 30 seconds. Victor would be gone, and half of this nightmare would be over. But Lily was right. Killing Victor now would damn him permanently. "Damien?" Lily stood up slowly. "Listen to me. You need to run. Get out of here. Go somewhere they can't find you. I'll handle the FBI. I'll tell them the truth. They won't believe you. Not with Cassandra's testimony backing up Victor's story. Not with forged evidence and coached witnesses. They'll think you're covering for me out of fear." "Then what do we do?" Damien looked at her. At the woman he loved standing in a trap designed specifically to destroy him. At Victor smirking even while being choked. At the impossible situation that had no good solution. And made a choice. He released Victor, who collapsed to the floor coughing and gasping. "Marco," Damien said into his radio, "extraction now. All of us." "Boss, the feds are—" "I know. Do it anyway." He crossed to Lily and took her hand. "Can you walk?" "Yes, but—" "Then we're leaving. All of us. Together. They'll hunt you forever." "I know, but I'd rather be hunted with you than safe without you."
Lily's eyes filled with tears. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Probably. You coming or not? She looked at him for a long moment, then squeezed his hand. Yes. They ran. Down the stairs, out the back door, into the forest where Marco and his men were waiting. Behind them, Damien could hear Victor screaming into a phone, calling for help, alerting everyone that the target was escaping. They made it to the vehicles. Piled in. Tires spun on dirt and gravel as they accelerated away from the cabin. In the distance, Damien could see headlights approaching. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. They're coming, Marco said grimly. We're not going to make it to the highway before they cut us off. Then we don't go to the highway. Take the logging road, the one that leads to the old quarry. That road's been closed for 10 years. Exactly. They won't expect it. Marco yanked the wheel, sending them bouncing onto a barely visible path between trees. Branches scraped the sides of the vehicle. The suspension screamed, but they were moving away from the headlights, deeper into forest the federal agents wouldn't know existed. Lily was pressed against Damien in the back seat, her hand still gripping his. What now? She whispered. Now we disappear. Completely. New identities, new lives, somewhere they'll never find us. And the baby will be born free, away from all of this. That's all that matters now. You're giving up everything? Your empire, your name, your entire life. No, I'm choosing what actually matters, finally. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and Damien felt something crack open inside his chest. Not the cold emptiness that had consumed him for weeks. Something warmer, harder, more permanent. They drove for 3 hours, switching vehicles twice, using back roads and abandoned paths that only smugglers and criminals knew existed. By dawn, they were in a safe house in upstate New York, a place so off the grid it didn't appear on any maps. Marco posted guards, checked weapons, started making calls to arrange false documents and overseas transport. Damien sat with Lily in a small bedroom, both of them exhausted, both of them realizing the magnitude of what they'd just done. We can't go back, Lily said quietly. I know. Everything you built, everything you worked for, gone. Worth it. Is it? Really? Damien took her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You and our child are the only things in my life that were real. Everything else was just survival. This is living. Lily kissed him then, desperate and fierce, and Damien kissed her back like he could somehow transfer safety through touch alone. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lily rested her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. I never stopped. Even when I thought you destroyed us. I did destroy us, but maybe we can build something new, something better. In hiding? On the run? Always looking over our shoulders? If that's what it takes. There was a knock on the door. Marco. Boss, we have a problem. Of course they did. Damien opened the door. What kind of problem? Marco's face was grim. Paul Vega. The guy who betrayed you to Victor and Cassandra. He just turned himself in to the FBI. He's offering to testify about everything, your operations, your deals, your entire organization, in exchange for witness protection. Shit. It gets worse. He knows about your escape routes, your safe houses, your offshore accounts. He's giving them a roadmap to find you. Damien felt ice forming in his veins. How long before they track us here? Hard to say. Maybe days. Maybe hours if Paul's being thorough. Lily stood up behind Damien. Then we keep moving. We don't stop until we're somewhere even Paul doesn't know about. There's nowhere I haven't told someone about, Damien said. That's how criminal infrastructure works. Networks of trust and shared knowledge. Then we go somewhere you've never been. Somewhere none of your people know. We improvise. Marco shook his head. That's suicide. You go in blind, you're vulnerable, no support, no backup, no extraction if things go wrong. And if we stay in the network, we're sitting ducks waiting for the FBI to close in, Lily countered. At least improvising gives us a chance. She's right, Damien said quietly. We cut all ties, burn everything, start completely fresh. You're serious? Completely. Marco stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but you're going to need money, untraceable money, and documents good enough to fool border security. How long to arrange that? 6 hours?
Maybe 8? Do it in 4. Marco left to make calls. Damien turned to Lily, seeing fear and determination warring in her expression. Last chance to change your mind, he said. You can stay here. Tell the FBI everything. Cooperate fully. They'll believe you're a victim, give you protection, let you raise the baby in peace. Without you, yes, without me. Lily placed her hand over her stomach. This baby deserves to have a father, a real one, not a ghost or a memory or someone they visit in federal prison once a month. This baby deserves to be safe, even if that means growing up without me.
No. Lily's voice was steel. This baby deserves to grow up with both parents, together, fighting for each other instead of against each other. And if that means running, we run. If that means hiding, we hide. But we do it together. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Damien pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body against his. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt something close to hope. They would run, they would hide, they would build a new life from nothing, but they would do it together. And somehow, that made all the fear and uncertainty worth it. 4 hours later, they were in a car heading toward the Canadian border with fake passports, $20,000 in cash, and no plan beyond survive. Behind them, the entire weight of the federal government and what was left of the Moretti Empire was collapsing like a building with its foundation removed. Ahead of them was nothing but uncertainty and possibility. Lily slept against Damien's shoulder while he drove, one hand resting protectively on her stomach. Marco was in the passenger seat, unusually quiet. You know we're probably going to die doing this, he said finally. Probably. And you're okay with that? Damien glanced at Lily's sleeping face, peaceful despite everything. As long as she and the baby make it, yeah. I'm okay with that. You've changed. The old Damien Moretti would never sacrifice himself for someone else. The old Damien Moretti didn't have anything worth sacrificing for. They drove through the night, crossing into Canada just as dawn broke over the horizon. And somewhere behind them, in a federal building in New York, agents were realizing their target had slipped through their fingers. Somewhere behind them, Victor and Cassandra were scrambling to salvage their revenge from the ruins of their plan. Somewhere behind them, an empire was dying. But ahead of them, just barely visible in the first light of morning, was something Damien had never allowed himself to believe in before. A future. Not perfect. Not safe. Maybe not even long. But real. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. The border crossing went smooth. The guards barely glanced at their documents. By the time anyone realized Damien Moretti had fled the country, they'd be gone. Disappeared into a world where names didn't matter and the past couldn't reach them. Lily woke up as they pulled into a small town 2 hours north of the border. Where are we? She asked, her voice thick with sleep. Somewhere new, somewhere safe, somewhere we can start over. She looked around at the quiet streets, the ordinary people going about ordinary lives, and smiled. It's perfect. It wasn't. But with Lily beside him and their child on the way, Damien thought maybe it could be. They checked into a small motel under false names, paid cash, kept the curtains closed, and for the first time in months, they slept peacefully, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. But in New York, in a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Cassandra Blake was making a phone call that would change everything. He ran, she said into the phone. Took the girl and disappeared into Canada. Good, Victor's voice responded. That's exactly what we wanted. Now we move to phase 3. You're sure this will work? I'm positive. Damien thinks he's escaped, thinks he's won by choosing love over power, but he's about to learn the most important lesson of all. Which is that you can't outrun the consequences of who you really are. And when we're done with him, he'll wish he'd stayed and faced federal prison. At least that would have been quick. Cassandra smiled, cold and satisfied. When do we start? Now. Send the package. Make sure it reaches him exactly when we planned, and then we wait for everything he loves to destroy him completely. The call ended, and in a small motel in Canada, while Damien and Lily slept peacefully in each other's arms, a package was being delivered that would shatter their fragile hope into dust. The package arrived 3 days later, delivered to the motel's front office with no return address and a note that said simply, "For the Castellanos in room 14."
Castellano was the name on their fake passports, the name they'd used to check in, which meant someone knew exactly where they were. Marco found it first during his morning security sweep. He brought it to Damien's room, his face grim, and set it on the small table without opening it. "We need to leave," Marco said. "Right now. If they know we're here—" "Open it," Damien interrupted. "Bad idea." "Open it anyway." Marco pulled a knife and carefully slit the tape. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. Damien unfolded the paper. The handwriting was Cassandra's. "You thought you could run. You thought choosing love would save you, but love doesn't save people like us, Damien. It destroys them. Watch the video, then decide if hiding was worth it." See. Lily emerged from this bathroom, her face still damp from washing. She'd been sick that morning, morning sickness hitting hard now that she was 10 weeks along. "What is that?" she asked. "I don't know yet." Damien plugged the USB drive into Marco's laptop. A single video file appeared. He clicked play. The video showed a hospital room, sterile, white, a woman lying in a bed connected to monitors and IV lines. It took Damien 3 seconds to recognize her, his youngest sister, Angela. She was unconscious, her face bruised and swollen, her arm in a cast. A doctor stood beside the bed, checking vitals with the detached efficiency of someone who'd seen too much trauma. The video cut to another angle. A man's voice, distorted electronically. "Your sister was in a car accident 2 days ago. Brakes failed on the highway. She's in critical condition. The doctors say she might not wake up. But here's the interesting part, Moretti. The brake lines were cut, professionally, by someone who knew exactly what they were doing." The video cut again. This time to Cassandra, sitting in what looked like a luxury apartment, perfectly composed. "You have a choice," she said, addressing the camera directly. "Come back to New York, face the federal charges. Cooperate with the investigation, and accept whatever prison sentence they give you. Do that, and Angela gets the best medical care money can buy. She might even recover fully." Victor appeared beside her, sliding into frame like a snake. "Or keep running," he continued. "Stay hidden with your little pregnant wife. Build your pathetic new life. And Angela dies. We'll make sure of it. Disconnect the machines, bribe the doctors, make it look like complications from the accident. No one will ever know it was murder." "You have 48 hours, Cassandra said. "After that, we pull the plug. Literally." The video ended. Damien stared at the black screen, feeling ice spread through his veins. Lily's hand found his. "They're bluffing. They have to be bluffing." "They're not." Marco's voice was hollow. "I just checked. Angela was admitted to Mount Sinai 3 days ago. Critical condition. Exactly like they said." "How did they even find her?" "Doesn't matter. They did. And now they're using her to force Damien's hand." Lily turned to Damien, her face pale. "What are you going to do?" Damien couldn't answer, couldn't think past the image of his baby sister lying unconscious in a hospital bed, machines keeping her alive, while Victor and Cassandra held her life hostage. Angela was 26, an art teacher. She didn't have anything to do with the family business, had spent her entire adult life trying to distance herself from the Moretti name and all the violence it carried, and now she was dying because Damien had tried to escape. "We go back," he said quietly. "No." Lily's grip tightened. "That's what they want. You go back, you're walking into prison. You'll never see our baby. Never have a life outside of a cage. And if I don't go back, Angela dies. She might die anyway. You don't know that they'll keep their word." "I don't. But I can't take that chance. Damien, she's my sister, Lily. I've already destroyed our marriage, our life, everything we tried to build. I won't destroy her too." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "So what? You're just giving up? After everything we've been through? After everything we sacrificed to get here?" "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing who lives and who dies, and I choose Angela." "What about us? What about our baby?" Damien pulled her close, feeling her shake against him. "You'll be safe. Marco will take you somewhere they can't find you. Canada, Europe, somewhere far away. You'll have money, protection, everything you need to raise our child. Without you. Yes, without me." "That's not a life, Damien. That's just survival. Sometimes survival is all we get." Marco cleared his throat. "Boss, there might be another way." "I'm listening."
We don't go to the FBI, we go to Victor and Cassandra directly, negotiate, find out what they really want. They want me in prison. No, they want revenge. Prison is just the method, but maybe there's something else they want more. Something we can trade. Like what?
Information, access, something valuable enough that they'd consider it a fair exchange for Angela's life. Damien thought about that, about what Victor and Cassandra actually wanted beneath the revenge and the violence. Victor wanted his empire back, the connections, the power, the respect Damien had destroyed. Cassandra wanted to matter again, to be someone instead of the woman who'd been publicly humiliated and discarded.
I might have something, Damien said slowly, but it would cost me everything, not just freedom. Everything. What is it? Lily asked. The Moretti Network. Complete access. Every contact, every operation, every piece of leverage I've built over 15 years. I hand it over to Victor. He gets to rebuild his empire using my infrastructure. He becomes what I was, and I become nothing. You'd give him that? For Angela? Yes.
They'll never believe you're willing to do that without a trap. Then I'll make them believe it. Vasek. The meeting was arranged for midnight, 40 hours after the video arrived. A warehouse in Queens. Neutral territory. Victor and Cassandra on one side, Damien on the other. Marco stayed back with Lily, both of them armed and watching from a distance in case this went sideways. Damien walked into the warehouse alone, hands visible, no weapons except the information stored on a tablet under his arm. Victor was waiting in the center of the empty space, flanked by two armed men. Cassandra stood beside him, looking satisfied and dangerous. You came, Victor said. I wasn't sure you would. You have my sister. I don't have a choice. Everyone has choices, Moretti. You made yours when you destroyed my life. This is just consequence. You want revenge. I understand that. But Angela has nothing to do with this. She's innocent. No one in your family is innocent. You all benefit from the blood money and stolen power. Your sister just had the luxury of pretending otherwise. Damien felt rage building but forced it down. I have something you want. Information that's worth more than putting me in federal prison. Victor's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. Damien held up the tablet. Complete access to the Moretti organization. Every contact, every operation, every piece of leverage. Financial accounts, smuggling routes, corrupt officials, blackmail material. Everything I've built over 15 years. Yours. In exchange for Angela's safety and your word that you leave Lily alone. Cassandra laughed. You expect us to believe you'd give up everything just to save one person? I expect you to understand that I'm not the same man I was 3 months ago. Love changes you, makes you realize some things are worth more than power. Sentimental nonsense. Maybe. But it's the truth. Take the deal or don't. But if Angela dies, you'll never get this information. I'll destroy it before I let you use it without giving me what I want. Victor stepped forward, studying Damien's face like he was trying to read a code. Show me.